Good evening, and right before we dive in, I'd like to quickly mention that over on Epoch TV, I recently published an exclusive episode, which included an exclusive interview with a doctor who was forcibly removed from a hospital board meeting by the police after he spoke about his own private practice experiences with a certain medication. Now, as you can imagine, even though we were literally on the ground at that meeting, and even though this story has relevance to almost everyone in the whole country, well, unfortunately, it's not really welcome here on this lovely platform known as YouTube. And so, if you'd like to check out that exclusive episode in its entirety, well, the link to Epoch TV, our awesome no censorship video platform, will be right there at the very top of the description box. You can just click on that link and watch the episode over on Epoch TV whenever you'd like. Now, getting back to today's main topic of discussion, well, it appears that the legal battle between Mr. Jim Jordan and the Manhattan District Attorney has just officially ended, given the fact that, for one, the judge in the case has ruled in favor of Jim Jordan, and that, secondly, the Manhattan DA's appeal to that ruling was just withdrawn. However, in order to explain what this all means, as well as the implications that it has on the Trump indictment, I need to take a quick moment to give you the broader context of what's really going on here. And I hope that if you do appreciate content like this, you take a quick moment to smash those like and subscribe buttons, which quite literally forces the YouTube algorithm to share this video out to ever more people. Now, as you might remember, shortly after President Trump was charged by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office with 34 felony counts of bookkeeping fraud, House Republicans began their own investigations. Chief among these was Congressman Jim Jordan, who, in his capacity as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, launched an official probe of the Manhattan DA's office. And as a part of that investigation, Mr. Jim Jordan wanted to question, under oath, a former Manhattan prosecutor named Mr. Mark Pomerantz, who, it's worth mentioning, after leaving the Manhattan DA's office, published a book, you can find it over on Amazon, titled People versus Donald Trump. In that book, Mr. Mark Pomerantz described both his work investigating the Trump organization in rather great detail, as well as how the former Manhattan District Attorney chose to not indict President Trump, even though he had all this information about the Trump organization at hand. Meaning, Mr. Mark Pomerantz has deep inside knowledge of the inner workings of the Manhattan DA's office, as that work specifically relates to the Trump case. And so, along that line, Jim Jordan sent over an official subpoena to Mr. Pomerantz, compelling him to appear before a congressional committee and to answer questions regarding both the Manhattan DA's investigation into President Trump as well as the Trump organization, as well as the internal debates inside of the Manhattan DA's office that were taking place behind closed doors. Essentially, Jim Jordan was working to investigate whether or not this indictment against President Trump was truly politically motivated. However, as you can imagine, the current Manhattan District Attorney, Mr. Alvin Bragg, he wasn't too, you can say, keen on having one of his former prosecutors be questioned by Congress. And as such, on Tuesday, April 11th, which is about 2 weeks ago now, Mr. Bragg filed a lawsuit against Mr. Jim Jordan, saying that since he is a county district attorney, and that since the charges against President Trump are state charges, Congress, meaning the federal Congress, doesn't actually have authority to conduct this type of oversight. And alongside his lawsuit, Mr. Bragg also attempted to file a temporary restraining order against Mr. Jim Jordan. However, as we reported last week on this very program, the federal judge in this particular case, who was ironically appointed to the bench by President Trump himself, she denied the request. She turned down Alvin Bragg's emergency request for a temporary restraining order. Now, that was all last week. However, since then, not only has that temporary restraining order been denied, but actually, the entirety of the case has just been resolved. The judge threw out the case, and she ruled in favor of Mr. Jim Jordan, meaning, as a practical matter, that the House Judiciary Committee can now go ahead and subpoena Mr. Mark Pomerantz, the former Manhattan prosecutor, and compel him to give his testimony under oath. In her official order, in terms of the legal aspects at play here, the judge ruled that the subpoena issued by Mr. Jim Jordan against Mr. Mark Pomerantz serves a legitimate legislative purpose, and thus is protected from lawsuits by the speech and debate clause of the U.S. Constitution. And just for your reference, that particular clause within the U.S. Constitution, it protects members of Congress from getting sued for actions that they take serving a legitimate legislative purpose. Here's specifically what the judge wrote as a part of her order. Quote, "It is not the role of the federal judiciary to dictate what legislation Congress may consider or how it should conduct its deliberations in that connection. Mr. Pomerantz must appear for the congressional deposition." Now, as you can imagine, Mr. Jim Jordan and his legal team were rather thrilled by this particular development. Here's, for instance, what a spokesperson for Mr. Jim Jordan told us here at the Epoch Times. Quote, "No one is above the law. today's decision shows that Congress has the ability to conduct oversight and issue subpoenas to people like Mark Pomerantz, and we look forward to his deposition before the Judiciary Committee. However, on the flip side, Mr. Alvin Bragg's legal team did not actually give up with this judge's decision. That's because just a few hours after they lost the case, Alvin Bragg's legal team filed a 500-page appeal to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Basically, they were doing everything to make sure that Mr. Mark Pomerantz could not testify. That appeal, for your reference, was filed last Thursday. But wouldn't you know it, just earlier today, perhaps after realizing that they didn't really have a cogent argument, Alvin Bragg's legal team actually withdrew their appeal, and they forfeited the case. This means that as a practical matter, the legal battle is officially over, and Mr. Mark Pomerantz will in fact be forced to testify before Congress. Here was Mr. Jim Jordan's spokesman again telling us here at the Epoch Times their response to this latest development. Quote, "This evening, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office withdrew its appeal in Bragg versus Jordan. Mr. Pomerantz's deposition will go forward on May 12th, and we'll look forward to his appearance." And then, more simply, the House Judiciary Committee tweeted out this, quote, "Bragg caved, Jim Jordan won." And so, looking back at this whole legal battle between Mr. Alvin Bragg and Mr. Jim Jordan, the only real-world effect it appeared to achieve was to push back the date of the testimony. That's because initially Mr. Mark Pomerantz was scheduled to testify on Thursday, April the 20th. But due to all this legal maneuvering, that congressional hearing has been moved to May 12th. However, despite not achieving anything other than a 3-week delay, the Manhattan DA released a statement of their own, calling this whole legal battle a success. Here was their statement in full, just for your reference. Quote, "Our successful stay of the subpoena blocked the immediate deposition and afforded us the time necessary to coordinate with the House Judiciary Committee on an agreement that protects the district attorney's privileges and interests. We are pleased with this resolution, which ensures any questioning of our former employee will take place in the presence of our general counsel on a reasonable, agreed-upon time frame. We are gratified that the Second Circuit's ruling provided us with the opportunity to successfully resolve this dispute." However, this story gets a lot deeper, which we'll get into after I introduce the sponsor of today's episode, which is the company that sold me this beautiful coin. This right here is an American Walking Liberty 1-ounce gold coin. And typically, I order at least one of these from our sponsor, American Hartford Gold, every single month. The reason I do so is because, as you likely know, the inflation rate in this country is the highest that has been in, the last 40 years now. Everything like the price of food, the price of housing, the price of gas is absolutely going through the roof. And in fact, market experts like the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, he's not only predicting a recession, but he's even using words like unprecedented economic hurricane. And so listen, I absolutely do not give you any financial advice, but I would recommend that you do what I do, which is pick up the phone and call American Hartford Gold. Their super friendly staff can help you diversify your portfolio by either getting physical gold and physical silver delivered directly to your doorstep like I do, or deposited directly into your IRA and your 401k accounts. They make the entire process super simple. And actually, besides me, they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau with quite literally thousands of satisfied clients around the country. And best of all, to our viewers, to the viewers of Facts Matter, they are currently throwing in $2,500 worth of free silver on your first qualifying order. So giving them a call is an absolute no-brainer. So pick up the phone and call 866-242-2352. That's 866-242-2352. Or text Roman to 65532. Their link will also be down in the description box below. And then let's head on back to the studio. And so, there you have it. The legal battle between Jim Jordan and Alvin Bragg is officially over, and the public deposition of the former Manhattan prosecutor will be taking place on Friday, May 12th. Perhaps some form of transparency will actually be achieved. Let's wait and see what we can actually learn from that deposition regarding the inner workings of the Manhattan DA's office. Until then, if you'd like to read any of the legal documents that we went through in this particular case, I'll throw all my research notes down into the description box below this video for you to peruse. And then lastly, as I mentioned at the very top of the episode, over on Epoch TV, our awesome no-censorship video platform, I recently published an exclusive episode, which again included an exclusive interview with a doctor who was forcibly removed by the police from a hospital board meeting after he dared to speak out about his own private practice experiences with you can say, certain medication. Now, as mentioned earlier, that type of episode is not really welcome here on YouTube due to the regime of censorship. And so if you'd like to check out that episode, you can do so over on Epoch TV alongside a plethora of other great content that does not have to go through the mental filters and gymnastics that a platform like YouTube forces upon its content creators. If you want to check out that awesome interview and that awesome episode, the link will be right there at the very, very, very top of the description box. I hope you click on it and check it out. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.